Hello, I'm Natalie Kenway, editor of ESG Clarity, and welcome to this special video interview with Pierre Bardou, Senior Portfolio Manager within the United Nations Development Programme. I'm very excited to be chatting with Pierre. He's going to share with us the projects and funds he's working on, some of his experiences and the importance of his work for the UN and the planet. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today, Pierre.
Hello, Natalie. How are you?
First of all, can you explain your role in the UN and the key projects that you work on?
I've been working in the UN for more than 15 years now. I work for an office, part of UNDP, that is called the UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office. So we have a dedicated function in the United Nations, which is to support the design and the management of UN trust funds. So they are financial mechanisms bringing together different sets of partners to support specific topic, very often related to the implementation of the SDGs, but also issues related to peace, security, humanitarian crisis, development, and climate change. On my portfolio, I manage directly around 15 trust funds. It's the size of the portfolio, just to give you an idea, it's 14 billion. So we have a cumulative portfolio of $14 billion. And we cover the entire world. We work with all the United Nations agencies. We also work with the World Bank, with international NGOs. We are mostly funded by governments. So we have around 120 governments funding our trust funds. And we have around 80 implementers, so UN agencies, NGOs, government. I work specifically on innovative financing mechanisms, so on blended finance related to climate change. So I think today it would be great if I could highlight the work that we have been doing for the ocean through the Global Fund for Coral Reef. We also have a flagship in Central Africa for forest protection, and also a very innovative financing mechanism called the Lion Share, which is a very nice product that was developed 2 years ago.
Well, Pierre, it sounds like you're extremely busy. First of all, can you talk about the Coral Reef Fund and how the coral reefs are affected by climate change and what is vital for their protection?
So the Global Fund for Coral Reef idea came 18 months ago. I was approached by Vulcan, so the Paul Allen Family Foundation based in Seattle. Paul Allen was a diver and he witnessed the massive bleaching events in the Pacific. And he had this idea before he died last year of setting up a financing mechanism that will bring together private philanthropy, government, the UN, impact investors in order to support private companies trying to protect the reef. Know, coral reefs are under three major threats. There is three major drivers of attacking the coral reef. The first one is pollution. The second one, human pollution. The second one is overfishing. And the main one is climate change. During the past 30 years, we've lost close to 50% of the reef, of the coral reef. And the estimate is that in the next 30 years, due to climate change, we may see up to between 70 to 90% of the coral reef disappear. So this is major, and if nothing is done, we will witness the extension of an entire ecosystem in our lifetime. So in order to address that, what we are trying to do with the Global Fund for Coral Reef is to support impact investors that are ready to finance projects that impact on those drivers. And we are trying to concentrate resources in the 10% of coral reef that may survive climate change. We cannot directly impact climate change, but what we can do is reduce the two other drivers, which is overfishing and pollution. So we have set up this financing mechanism with a coalition of partners. It's a blended financing instruments, and I will be able to tell you more about the structure. But basically, we will support businesses that put in place co-management agreement of marine protective areas, sustainable fisheries, coral restoration, that address agriculture runoff, that work on protective mangroves, etc.
Okay, fantastic. And what would the future of this ecosystem look like without action being taken?
So we will, as I was saying, we will lose the entire, most of the entire life and ecosystem on coral reef. The projections are very bad. And public money will not be enough to address this threat. So that's why we're trying to use public money to facilitate investment from private actors. If you look at the financing landscape today, supporting coral reef, we are only able to mobilize 5% of the resources that are needed in order to protect 10 to 20% of those reefs. So there is really a need to scale up the response and provide larger financing flow. The way we want to do it with the Global Fund for Coral Reef is by pulling together private foundation grants with public grants from government, use it as a de-risking instruments and pipeline development in order to attract impact investors. The ratio is 25% of grant to mobilize 75% of impact investment. The financial mix, it's a demonstration fund, meaning that we're not going to address the entire financial gap. It's a 500 million fund that will focus on priority countries. We will work in around 10 to 15 priority ecosystem in specific countries, and we will try to deploy 50 million of investment in those sites in order to demonstrate that by partnering, that by setting up the right financing mechanism between public and private, we can change the dynamic.
Okay, and what kind of investors are you looking for? Who do you speak to finance these projects or the fund?
Okay, so there is different level of engagement. First of all, at the trust fund level, we are partnering with BNP Paribas and Mirova as the asset manager. So BNP Paribas will basically coordinate the investment by private impact investors, and Mirova will be the asset manager for the investment window of the fund. On the grant side, it will be managed by my office, and I'm the trustee appointed for the grant window. So this is at the fund level where we're trying to attract investments. Now, at the project level, what we are doing, we're working with CFA, so we Conservation Finance Alliance. They are putting together an investment plan, and we did a request for information 3 months ago, trying to reach out to private operators that have ideas, that have projects that have already implemented and are trying to scale up. So that's really at the project level, talking with private companies, with people trying to bring together those pipeline and those deals. And we are basically going to assess which deals is financially viable and at the same time can bring the impact we're seeking in order to protect the reef. So it's really a dual approach, looking at financial viability, the de-risking, the financial mix that is needed, the de-risking, and at the same time assess how those projects will positively impact the coral reef that we're trying to protect. The main challenge is not to mobilize the private impact investments. The main challenge is to find the deals. There is a lot of will from the market, from investors that are trying to make a difference to invest in those products, but those products are not there. And that's why we are building this blended mechanism in order to use the grant to develop those products and those offers. The challenge is in the field, on the ground, supporting those private operators that are trying to scale up their operation and then trying to build models, business models that are financially viable and having an impact. And this is where the UN is going to come in, provide technical assistance, provide them with the right, with grants, so that they can reach the potential.
It sounds like you're carrying out some vital, important work, and best of luck with that going forward. Can you explain a bit more about the Lion's Share Fund now and the work that's involved on that one?
So the Lion's Share Fund, it's a completely different concept. This is something that is really private companies the UN, and the world of marketing. So basically the concept of the lion's share is that in a lot of ads, around 25 to 30% of the ads that you see on television, animals are featuring those ads in order to better sell products or because the ad is in nature, or so you have a lot of animals that you see in those ads. Those animals most of the time are endangered species, very often. Those animals are used to sell product and make money, but they are not paid because it's considered as a public good. In the meantime, we see that most of those species, lion, elephants that are used in ads, tigers, will disappear in the best estimate in the next 30 years, they will go extinct. So the lion's share idea is for companies that are trying to make a difference and be more sustainable and care about the way they do business, is to contribute 0.5% of each ad that feature animals. So they join the lion's share, and by joining the lion's share, they make a donation every time they are using the images of animals. Those donations are then used by the fund to invest in protection initiatives for those animals. So so far we have signed up Mars, the chocolate company, and pet food company. We signed up Cartier, Gucci, Lacoste. The economy is also part of the lion's share. We are about to launch a partnership with MasterCard. And all the funds that have been mobilized have been used to support conservation actors in the field. We have a major project in the Lusser ecosystem in Indonesia. This is the last place on earth where you have orangutan, tiger, rhino living together. And so this is one. We have also supported projects, small projects during the COVID pandemic to support conservation actors that were getting their resources from tourism. So we've been supporting them. We've also supported the Women Rangers Patrol in Africa and in Indonesia as well. We've worked on a national park protection measure in Africa. And this work is ongoing, and we hope that more and more companies are going to join the lion's share. We have a logo, so the companies that join the lion's share can then use the logo on their product or on their ads.
There's so much to take in there. What would you say? I mean, just so our readers are fully informed, what are the implications if this global nature crisis, this biodiversity loss, if this is left untackled? What are the implications for you and I as we live in society, but also the economy as well? That's where our readers are looking at as well.
It's extension of entire ecosystem and extension of species. This is what we are watching. So it's major. In terms of economic impact, if we go back to the reef, coral reef are providing livelihoods to close to 1 billion people. So proteins from fish, and every protection from extreme events. So the reef, the coral reef, are protections. A lot of population, especially in Asia and in the Pacific, live very close to the coast. So without the coral reef, they're going to be very vulnerable to climate change events, storm, hurricanes, sea rising level. So this is not only necessary to protect the reef, it's also necessary to protect our lifestyle and to protect our communities. In terms of, and for the lion's share, it's the same thing. There is a lot of communities that depends on tourism activity in Africa. If lions or elephants disappear, all those tourism activities are going to disappear. And it's an entire economic system that will collapse. If you look at the impact, if you just look right now, the impact of COVID in Africa and in those countries, it's major. So this is a short-term event. If you look, if in 20 years all those species disappear, it's their entire pillar of their economy that's going to collapse. And it's not just valid for African countries. It will also impact international investors because a lot of these this tourism industry is financed by bank or investors from Europe, from the US, from Asia. So this is something that concerns all of us.
In your research and your travels, what have you seen in the environment that has alarmed you the most?
If we go back again to the reef, I mean, I don't know if you dive, but if you are a diver and you dive in in location that 20 years ago were pristine, and now I've faced major bleaching event. It's like diving on the moon. It's really incredible. I mean, I've been diving in Indonesia, in Fiji, in the Caribbean. One dive that I did in Fiji that was incredible was with sharks, but we were diving with sharks in a field of coral reef completely dead and with nothing around. It was scary because of the sharks, but also scary because of the landscape. I've been based as well in Central Africa, and I've witnessed high level of deforestation on the Central African forest. The Central African forest is the second largest rainforest in the world. It provides the oxygen we breathe, and seeing how the forest is attacked by the exploitation. That's also very sad. You have the same thing if you go in Indonesia and you look at palm oil plantation, and how palm oil plantation has replaced the entire Sumatra forest.
That does sound really alarming. I completely understand why you were scared at that point. And what have been the more encouraging signs? What have you seen that has shown you that we are sort of making some sort of progress?
The good part, or what I mean, bring hope, is to see all conservation actors in the field trying to protect those ecosystems, but also to see how in Europe or in the US, we see more and more people coming in and really trying to support. So when we are launching the Global Fund for Coral Reef or the Lion's Share, we are getting a lot of support from private operators, from impact investors. I mean, as I was saying, the will is there, the money is, the investment, I mean, the capacity to invest is there. Now it's more about building the offer, building the market. But I think that people are realizing that this is not going to be solved only by governments or by public money. And it's necessary for private investors to step in and start to invest in products that are more sustainable and are going to make that difference. So I'm quite optimistic.
It's good to hear that there are some encouraging signs out there as well. So finally, how can investors get involved in your projects? And what would you like to see more from asset managers or investment managers that are listening to this through ESG Clarity?
How to get involved in our project? I mean, if you are a manager of a company, please join the Lion's Share. Or encourage company that you are financing to join the Lion's Share. We're trying to enroll more than 100 companies. We are at 15 right now, so there is still a long way to go. On the Global Fund for Coral Reef, we'll be seeking for impact investors. This is something that BNP Paribas and Mirova are going to do in the next 6 months. So we need investors to step in. We are looking for $375 million for the investment window. We are securing the grant part, the de-risking. This is almost in place. And if you have also ideas for blended financing mechanism, please reach out to us. We are always happy to look at potential ideas and brainstorm and work at helping designing those instruments. I mean, we have the knowledge on the UN side, on the public side. What we need is partners that understand how the private investment works, and we're ready to work together.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Pierre. It's been an honour to hear just a small snippet of all the important work that you're doing. Good luck with everything, and thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Nathan.